Okay, everyone. I think if you're all coming back from the break, getting settled in, hope you're enjoying the presentations. Um, we have about 7 lightning talks to get through in this session. And our first presenter will be Sam Wilairat from Lane Medical Library at Stanford University. So Sam, are you there? And we'll get you all set up here.
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent.
Okay, just to check, everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
All right, Sam, oh wait, I'm sorry, wrong spot. I'm going to stop sharing. I am early.
Okay.
W.
So Sam, if you could share and I'll leave
Okay.
it to you.
Can you hear me and can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep, you're all good.
Okay, great. I'm going to jump right in then. So hi, my name's Sam Wilairat. I'm the Research Communications Librarian at Lane Medical Library at Stanford. And my lightning talk is titled 5 Key Takeaways from Creative Commons for Academic Librarians. Creative Commons for Academic Librarians is an online certificate course held twice a year. And before I start, I'd just like to share that I'm not a lawyer, so even though I'm talking about copyright, none of what I'm saying is legal advice. So why am I talking about this? I'd like to share what I learned from the course because medical librarians and those supporting medical institutional repositories will be better able to contribute to the open access movement if they're comfortable with open licensing and able to guide their depositors through license selection and interpretation. So the first takeaway from the course that I'll share is Creative Commons licenses work in conjunction with copyright. So in other words, you can think of the Creative Commons license as an added layer on top of copyright. So what are the implications of this? First, a Creative Commons license applies to the work only until the copyright of the work expires, when the work then enters the public domain. And in the United States, this is the life of the author plus 70 years. Another implication, to assign a Creative Commons license, you must own or control the copyright. And then lastly, exceptions and limitations to copyright still apply to a Creative Commons licensed work. So for example, Creative Commons licenses do not change the fair use doctrine. The next takeaway is license permanence. So I learned through the course that the licenses are irrevocable. This means that the license your depositors initially select is very important. But what happens if your depositor decides that they want to offer their work under a different license than the initial license they selected? Well, there are some solutions. The original license cannot be revoked, but they can remove the copy of the work they placed under the initial license and then offer the same work under a new license. But the caveat is anyone who found the work under the original license is still permitted to use it under those terms until the copyright expires. Next, I'd like to talk about remixes and adaptations of Creative Commons work. So I was surprised to learn through the program that not all Creative Commons licenses can be combined to create a remix. So for that reason, I'd like to share, there we go, sorry. I'd like to share this chart, which you can use to identify whether or not two different Creative Commons works may be legally remixed together in an adaptation. So in an institutional repository, if you're going to add a filter that allows users to select just works that allow for adaptations, it's important to understand that each individual license can only be remixed with specific other licenses. And 2 of the Creative Commons licenses allow for no adaptations at all. And those are the CC by ND and the CC by NC-ND licenses. And also this chart's useful to show how CC BY is the most open of the Creative Commons licenses because it allows for maximum remix capabilities. The next takeaway I'd like to share is that the assignment of a Creative Commons license does not necessarily mean that the object is an open educational resource or OER. So for a material to be considered OER, we use the 5 R's. The work you must be able to retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute the work in order for it to be OER. So with that said, any item that's in the public domain or has been licensed with a Creative Commons license that does allow for adaptations is OER. The revise and the remix Rs of the 5 OER Rs cannot happen if a CC license with ND or no derivative is selected. So the implications here is that nothing indexed as OER should be assigned either of the 2 licenses in red on this slide. And then the last takeaway I'd like to share is a resource you can lean on when helping depositors navigate licensing. So selecting a license can be really daunting and intimidating, and many depositors will not understand the rights they're releasing and retaining based on the specific license they choose. So I recommend referring people to the license chooser embedded in this slide. And with that, thanks for your attention. And there's so much that I didn't cover in 5 minutes, so please take a look at these 2 resources for further learning if you're interested in learning more.
Great, thanks, Sam. And once again, we'll be posting the slides on the Merle website after we're done for today. But right now we have a pre-recorded session that Stephen's gonna get up for us. It's by Sara, Weirich, the University of Maryland, Baltimore. And whenever you're ready, Stephen. Oh, the audio's not working.
Hello, my name is Sara Weirich, and I am the Metadata Librarian at the Health Sciences and Human Services Library at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. And the lightning talk I'm going to give today will overview a poster printing service that our library offers to students, faculty, and staff, as well as the opportunity for our users to deposit a digital copy of their poster to our university's digital repository. HSHSL's poster printing service gives our users the opportunity to print large-scale posters right inside of the library. This is great for a variety of academic, professional, and research purposes, and we particularly see a lot of conference poster printing. Here you can see a screenshot of a LibGuide that offers instructions and tips for users to design, size, and submit their poster for printing. When a user clicks on the Request Form tab, they are directed to, you guessed it, our poster print request form. After clicking through some informational prompts, users end up at our poster print request form. It's designed to aid both our services department, who uses the information for the physical side of the poster printing, and the resources department, which has a dedicated archive help email list, which uses the information for the digital side of the posters. Since the users are already uploading a digital copy of their poster for printing, we've now given them the opportunity to share that same file for inclusion in the UMB Digital Archive, which is our institutional repository. I'm now zooming in on a screenshot of a section of the form which emerges after a box is checked, indicating interest in submitting a poster to the UMB Digital Archive. We ask that all authors read and agree to our license agreement in order to deposit their poster. In addition to that, we ask for a few additional fields to help aid the cataloging of the poster, and we were careful not to ask for too much information here, as we wanted to make the submission process as simple and straightforward for our users as possible. Once the form is submitted, the information and respective PDF files are accessible through a staff portal. With the files and information in hand, the resources cataloger can create a new record in the UMB Digital Archive, which is hosted on the DSpace platform. The first thing the cataloger does is assign the poster to a collection in the archive. The archive serves 6 schools at UMB, and each has a faculty and student works collection. Assigning the poster to the right collection is usually as simple as locating the school's logo on the poster, and from there, the cataloger adds Dublin Core metadata to enhance the findability of the poster in the archive. And we make an effort to make sure each poster has author names, title, dates, authorized subject headings when possible, and a brief description. Once the record is submitted to DSpace, it's added to the top of both the UMB Digital Archives homepage and the individual schools collection page. So you can see here we have a screenshot of the School of Dentistry's collection page. Then the cataloger returns to the staff portal to mark the poster as complete, and once that complete button is hit, the submitter is notified by email that their poster has been added to the UMB Digital Archive. So, in summary, I just wanted to review the digital focus of the poster printing lifecycle. And it all starts with the request form where the submitter opts to deposit their poster into our archive. And from there, it moves to the cataloger who uses the metadata from the form as well as the poster itself to create a record. And finally, when the record is complete, the submitter is notified of the successful deposit of their poster into the archive. And that concludes my lightning talk for today. I want to thank everyone for their time, for the medical institutional repositories and libraries for hosting this symposium, and I welcome any questions. Thanks.
Wow, that's a great idea. Thanks for sharing, Sara. Next we have Jennifer Deal from Advocate Aurora Health.
All
Hey,
right.
Jennifer.
Hi. I'm gonna share. Okay. Hi, I'm Jennifer Deal, and I'm here to talk about a way we've tailored reporting in digital commons for one of our primary stakeholder groups at Advocate Aurora Health.
Oh, Jennifer, we can't see your slides.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I know you tested it. So.
I know, it's saying
Show
it's
up.
sharing. Okay, hang on. All right, let me
Here
try
it
that
is.
again.
See your desktop.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
You're good.
All right, well, I already did my intro, so I'll go next. So here's some background information on our organization and the history of our IR in case you're curious, but I'm just gonna zoom on through that since the slides will be available later. So late in 2021, Aurora Graduate Medical Education approached us because they wanted to begin using the IR as the single source of all their program scholarly activity in 2022. The former process was haphazard and duplicated efforts as some works were being added to the IR and others were being compiled manually by academic affairs. This was an exciting opportunity for the library to demonstrate even more value to our GME programs, so we were committed to making it work. We were well positioned to meet their needs in some important ways. We already had organized scholarly activity by GME program in our repository, and we had also implemented a submission form process in 2021. But there were some challenges too. First, they wanted reports to focus on what was submitted to the IR from the chosen date range. IR submission date was only available in dashboard reports. They also wanted usage metrics such as download counts and PlumX metrics data incorporated, which was also only available in dashboard reports. However, they still wanted a lot of data that is only available in the content inventory reports, as you can see here in this table. The solution was to merge content inventory data with dashboard data into one cohesive report that met all their needs. Easy, right? One quick caveat, Digital Commons is rolling out a new content inventory tool by the end of this year, and that will include submission to IR dates. However, download and PlumX data will still only be available in the dashboard, so we're going to continue needing to merge these reports in the future. Now we'll go into some of the specifics of our process to create this combined report in Excel. First, I run a content inventory report for all relevant IR series. You can see some of the settings I use on this slide. Once I have that Excel spreadsheet generated, I sort the publication date column in reverse chronological order and make sure to expand selection so all the columns resort and the metadata stays with the correct row. I then delete all the rows that are older than my target period. To get download numbers, I then need to run another report by going into the dashboard's usage tab and generate a downloads report for all appropriate series. In that resulting Excel spreadsheet, I once again sort the submission date column in reverse chronological order and remove any works that aren't in the date range I'm focused on. And besides the sorting functionality, there is another Excel tool I rely on as I'm working to match up records, and that's conditional formatting. I like to use URLs as a unique record identifier, so I will copy and paste the URL column from one report into the other one temporarily and use conditional formatting to flag duplicates between the two reports. I then remove anything that doesn't have a duplicate, since the end goal is to end up with two reports that reflect the exact same works. Note, if you're using URLs to match records, you'll need to make sure they are consistent. So in the content inventory, they use HTTPS and the dashboard report uses HTTP. So I use find and replace functionality to make them identical. Finally, I run the third report to get that PlumX data, and I run that report for all the same series as our previous reports. Once again, I use conditional formatting to match records between reports, but this time I need to use the title column as URL isn't available for PlumX reports. So the goal, again, is just to end up with all the same works as the previous two reports. And then once I've met that goal and they all match, I sort all three reports alphabetically by title and just spot check to make sure the rows match up across the reports. And then once they do, merging them is a simple matter of inserting applicable columns from the dashboard reports into the content inventory report to form one cohesive spreadsheet. The last thing I do is format the report to make it easier to read for my audience. I organize the spreadsheet so that the most relevant columns for my stakeholders are at the beginning, and then update the titles of those columns so they'll be less technical and more meaningful to my audience. I also like to shade those first columns and add borders to the cells to increase readability. Finally, I use find and replace functionality to remove all the HTML tags. So this will clean up some of the data such as custom citation and abstract. And on this slide, you can see an example of what my final report looks like. So that's a really quick run through of my process for generating this merged report. And on this slide, I just have some things for you to consider if you decide to try something like this at your institution, including questions to ask stakeholders and best practices. Above all, I recommend that you keep super detailed notes for yourself on how you ran the report last time, because you'll absolutely forget important details 3 to 12 months later. Ask me how I know. All right, that's all I've got. Let me know if you have questions, and thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. I'm always amazed at the workarounds people come up with for generating the reports. Okay, so next we have Heather Brown from the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
All right, we hear you.
Okay.
And I am seeing your slides. There you go. You're all set.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, today I'm going to talk about the work that we've done with some visiting students in our IR. Like many of you, student work plays a prominent part of your repository. Some of our current student work includes theses and dissertations and a variety of capstone and projects. UNMC also has a number of pathway programs for external students interested in the health sciences and UNMC. One such program is the Summer Undergraduate Research Program, or SURP for short. SURP provides summer opportunities for undergraduate students to become members of research teams and discover firsthand the broad spectrum of research activities occurring at UNMC. SURP is a 10-week full-time program in which students work with research teams and attend a variety of seminars. They receive a stipend, and there are about 80 to 100 positions available. Their work culminates in a poster session in which they present the research that they worked on with their teams. The library has been a long-time participant with the program by providing a myriad of instruction sessions. For instance, literature searching, citation management, scholarly dissemination, medical ethics history, and graphic medicine, just to name a few. In 2020, our involvement in SURP expanded due to the COVID-19 pandemic. SURP students were not on campus. They worked with researchers remotely. Because of this, there was no in-person poster session. The coordinator's plan was to post the posters and narration on Echo 360, which is an instructional tool used by UNMC. However, the sustainability was unknown. Enter Digital Commons, our institutional repository. Our discussions with the coordinators pointed out that we now have the ability to host streaming audio and excuse me, streaming audio and video, that the posters would be preserved online, would provide the students with the opportunity to have their work disseminated, and that Digital Commons could provide metrics. They also liked the idea that the posters would be available to be used as a recruitment tool and a resource for SERP students to see what was previously done. To make things easier for the students, myself and one of the coordinators uploaded the VoiceOver PowerPoint file to the repository. It was our first time using the newly launched streaming video capability, so there were some unknowns. A total of 26 narrated posters were uploaded in 2020. The links to the posters were then distributed for viewing before a virtual poster session in which the students answered questions. In 2021, the SERP program moved back to an in-person experience, and though there would be an in-person poster session, it was decided by the coordinators to continue having the posters hosted in Digital Commons. However, the students would upload their posters themselves. To date, program students have uploaded 121 posters, of which have received over 2,600 downloads. The original 26 videos, which we only did videos for that first year, these videos have received 185 complete viewings. I do have a couple lessons learned, one of which is that I'm going to request to briefly speak to the students during their poster instructional session so that I can address any questions that may come up, and to remind students to speak with their mentors about Digital Commons and that the poster will be open to the world. In the past, there has been some confusion about the openness of Digital Commons, and results that were not ready to be posted were. All in all, including visiting students' posters in the repository has been successful, and we look forward to many more years. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for that, Heather. Next we have our very own Stephen Moore from Sladen Library of Henry Ford Health. Okay,
Right. Thank you, Lisa.
there you go.
Everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Stephen Moore. I'm a librarian at Sladen Library at Henry Ford Health in Detroit, Michigan. You may remember me from such appearances as earlier today or last year. Today, I'd like to talk to you about a promotional campaign that I put together this spring. Henry Ford Health is a large healthcare system in the Detroit metro area that employs 30,000 staff members, including 6,000 physicians and 1,000 residents. Our institutional repository, called Scholarly Commons, is on the bPress Digital Commons platform. And it collects scholarly works and other materials published by Henry Ford authors, such as the entire run of the Henry Ford Hospital Medical Journal, which I presented about last year with a few colleagues, if any of you remember. Each month, recent works are compiled into a, into a publication list that's shared across the health system. Then those citations are deposited into the IR by me with an access link and a full text PDF to download. Our authors have been pretty busy. We have over 14,000 works in the repository that are being downloaded at a rate of about 1 every 2 minutes. So we're very happy with the success of Scholarly Commons. Obviously, it didn't happen overnight. We created Scholarly Commons in late 2018 and 2019. We spent the year populating it with about 5 years of publications. And then in 2020, I started to work on a promotional campaign and started speaking to folks in medical education when I was rudely interrupted by a global pandemic. So I spent that year just kind of collecting material from virtual events and cleaning up the site. So by this spring, I was more than ready to start promoting the site on a larger scale. And I created a campaign to promote directly to department and division heads and administrators in medical education. My goal was to showcase the IR tools that departments can use to promote their research, recruit new staff, monitor scholarly activity and impact both quickly and easily. The center of the campaign was the department dashboard and how departments can promote those works and the metrics on those works out to their community and beyond. Many of you use the BPress platform for your IR, but if you don't and there's not an equivalent, dashboards are the behind the scenes pages that collect usage metrics and allow you to filter by date or department. So my campaign includes some assets I'd like to share with you. I started with an introductory email where I try to be as clear and concise as possible, and try not to waste anybody's time because we are talking about busy physicians in the middle of a pandemic. I try to break up walls of text with images from the site and formatting and links out for more information, so I didn't give them everything. Is a tough balance to strike, but I think I did it. The most effective part of the campaign, I think, was the 6-minute video that I created specifically for this audience. I use canva.com. If you're not familiar, it's a free, well, you can pay, but I use it freely to design this video. We use it at the library, and it's very easy. I'm sure it's the bane of any actual designer, but they worked for me. I took that video and added it to Microsoft Photo to add closed captioning and edit it. And I also signed everyone up, all 200 or so recipients, to receive readership reports every month, and explained to them how that gives them permanent access to the dashboard and shareable. So they were able to share that out with anyone in their community that, I don't know. I also rounded out the campaign with some blog posts and some more flyers from Canva. Very important, but maybe minor asset was the contact list that kept needing to be updated. We have a large system, so it's important to stay on top of who's doing what, where, when. Looking at the metrics, you can see we've generally grown month after month, but I'm happy to see that I can point to specific periods where intervention seems to have an impact, such as when we started adding full text PDFs in 2019, or when anytime I spoke to MedEd. We had a really good response to the campaign, and now I'm working with 3 of our most prolific departments to add tools like the RSS feed, the readership activity map, to their Henry Ford web pages, and there's talk of using APIs to create a new type of site that hopefully I'll get to talk about next year. So throughout this campaign and the years leading up to it, I've learned a few things that may be obvious, but I'm going to share them anyway. And if the Rolodex didn't date me, here is David Letterman. Number 5, most important thing, know your audience. It's very obvious, but it's important to always think of who they are, what they care about, what problems that you can solve, and kind of treat it like a thesis statement, and just always be asking yourself that question. So every part of what you're communicating to them points back to why should they care about this. Number 4, think about IT. They are very important to you. They help you understand what you can sell to your community, what the limitations and opportunities are. I would advise acting as a liaison between people making requests of IT and IT, just to kind of manage and for everyone's expectations and understand the limitations. I found out that the website was going through a migration, so kind of corralled everybody's requests with that in mind. It's important to find your champion and go for the head. I was lucky enough that our medical director is a big fan of the library, and on my behalf, she used her influence to, I think, get everybody's attention and invited me to speak at all staff meetings where I had the room. So that was very fortunate. Usually IR librarians are the only ones working on it, or maybe have student workers if they're lucky. So it's important to be resourceful and be crafty with your time, with your energy and resources. Look for workarounds or free resources that are available to you, like Canva or anything that comes with your Office package. I've seen a lot of good presentations on Google. So that's obviously recommended if your system allows it on your computer. Lastly, have fun. This is a finish line, and we should celebrate that. It's important to do what you need to do to keep everybody's attention. I'm planning to give out prizes for our 500,000th download, which I'm expecting next year. You know, throw a pun in your title that you can't fully commit to. Yeah, just have fun with it. All right, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Stephen. And next we have Sara Hoover from the Himmelfarb Health Sciences Library at George Washington University. Take it away, Sara.
Thanks. Can you see everything and hear me?
Yep, you're good.
All right. As Lisa said, my name is Sara Hoover. I'm the Metadata and Scholarly Communications Librarian at the Himmelfarb Health Sciences Library at George Washington University. My talk today is called From Digital Commons to Alma Primo, Expanding Readership for Doctor of Nursing Practice Projects. My question was fundamentally, does content from an institutional repository have a place in a library catalog? If so, what are best practices? I decided the answer was yes, with a few caveats. Despite the diminishing role of discovery systems, the library catalog still is a potentially important avenue for discovery, and inclusion of IR content in a discovery system to advance the dissemination of quality institution-specific. This is really a tale of two systems. It's about getting content from our Digital Commons IR into our Ex Libris Alma Primo system. Quick systems background. Himmelfarb acquired an instance of Digital Commons about a decade ago. Our instance is known as Health Sciences or HSRC for short. Scope, we use it to cover information from the GW School of Medicine and Health Sciences, School of Public Health, and School of Nursing. We use it for archiving full text grade literature, citation archives for faculty publications, and some other pretty conferences. Alma and Primo at Himmelfarb, basically the library joined the Washington Research Library Consortium in 2018, and the entire consortium migrated to the Ex Libris system at that time. One of the great advantages of the Ex Libris system is that content from any OAI PMH compliant will be included in Primo's central index. So in 2018, we set up a feed between HSRC and Alma and Primo. So this is kind of the fire hose methodology added all in. We quickly discovered a number of problems with this system. Citation-only entries from the IR made for duplicative content. Reference librarians really didn't like posters in the catalog. And above all, we couldn't manually edit the records, which was problematic. Therefore, the feed was ultimately discontinued, and we decided to focus on options for including specific IR collections. The collection that immediately came to mind was our Doctor of Nursing Practice, or DNP, project collection in Digital Commons. We established this collection in 2017, and I worked really closely with DNP faculty. Archiving their capstone projects is a mandatory program requirement for graduation. Right now, we have about 120 different DNP projects. These have been downloaded over 100,000 times. 34,000 of those downloads have occurred in the last year. And this is really high quality content that's not always published elsewhere. So this is kind of what our alternative workflow ended up looking like. We needed to first devise a method for adding content to our discovery system. We needed to devise a method for extracting content from our IR. And lastly, we needed to develop a method for benchmarking and assessing usage. So the first step was adding content to our discovery system. We researched the Ex Libris import profiles. They have a bunch of different types. And we ultimately selected the repository type import profile to batch load content. The next step was a little bit trickier, batch harvesting content from the IR, as other people have noted. Basically, we needed Mark 21 records for the Alma repository type import profile. In Digital Commons, other users may know collection level metadata can be exported via content inventory report. This is just an Excel spreadsheet, but there's currently no option to export into a specific metadata schema. And therefore, it was necessary for us to map harvested metadata to the MARC format. We ultimately created an XLSX file with about 30 different MARC fields, which we were then able to upload into Alma. Step 3 was just our results. We ultimately created and uploaded 89 bibliographic records into Alma. We created a DNP special collection in Primo. And since August 2021, we've had over 500 link resolver requests in the catalog for these items. Project benefits are we now have a workflow for mapping additional collections from Digital Commons directly into Alma and Primo. We have a method for greater control over our IR records within our discovery system than we had with the OAI PMH feed. We successfully established a method for batch rather than manual uploads, and we can really edit individual records, which is key. And lastly, we've just kind of figured out how to increase the interoperability between systems. That's everything I have today. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end.
Great, thanks, Sarah. All right, our last presentation is by Amanda Schwartz from Providence. So Amanda, whenever you're ready, pull up your screen.
You see my screen?
I can see your screen and I can hear you. You're all set.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Amanda Schwartz. I'm the digital asset librarian for Providence, and I am talking to you from snowy and cold Missoula, Montana. Quick background about our IR. Providence is a leading health organization with services spanning Washington, Oregon, Alaska, California, Montana, Texas, and New Mexico. Providence-affiliated researchers publish and present materials in a range of clinical, social science, and life science categories. The initial ask for a repository came from research in 2018, and here we are now. Prior to 2020, our IR hosted a modest amount of conference content. We had a poster collection in an annual nursing conference, as well as hosted posters from the 2018 and 2019 PNC MLA meetings. As needs grew for digital spaces during the pandemic, we, like many IRs, became the digital materials host for previously in-person events. Now, conferences have become an integral part of our IR, supporting nursing, GME, and research needs. To date, we host over 20 conference collections. Building conference collections varies in time and complexity. We keep things very, very flexible. Instead of presenting standard conference architecture with Digital Commons, we leveraged book gallery and series architecture to meet stakeholder needs. Library staff also streamlined discussions and workflows, such as creating OneDrive folders for each conference. Being flexible with architecture also meant being flexible with item records. We built records that could showcase posters, video, and audio. This year, we created collections that were also live simultaneously with in-person conferences, and yes, it took a lot of work. This created seamless interaction between materials and attendees via apps and QR codes. These collections provide authors with additional space to list their references, contact information, and supplemental content that may not be readily available in person. Coordinators are pleased with how these collections keep the conversation going. A great success was our June 2022 Providence Nursing Research Conference. It utilized a traditional conference structure, including an agenda, presentations, posters, and supplemental audio. Staff also worked to create QR codes so attendees could scan posters, which took them to item records. This created a simple way for attendees to network and follow up. We leveraged the Digital Commons Readership dashboard and PlumX altmetrics to drive home the importance of hosting conference collections on the repository. Usage statistics play a wonderful role in exemplifying the reach conference materials can have when they are showcased online. Readership metrics are well received and keep coordinators engaged and aware of the repository. If you're curious, we have a QR code and a URL to our repository, and thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. So we actually have 5 minutes left for questions. There is only one question that came through in the chat, but it looks like Sara Weirich responded to it. Sara, I didn't know if you wanted to expand on it a little more or talk about it within the context of talking to people. Oh, we can't hear you. Oh, no, sorry. How about I just I can reread it for you. So let's see what the question was. It was in regards to the posters that people could print, and there was the form on the website that would direct them to deposit right in the repository. So can research decide when they want the digital version of their poster to be placed online? Sounds basically like an embargo situation. And then I'm sure you all read it in the chat. Let me get to it. There is a functionality within the DSpace platform to embargo files. Adding the option to embargo is certainly something that could be implemented in the submission form. So like we've talked about before, always adding on to content and relooking at things in workflows. Thanks, Sara. I see you posted in there. So I think in general, we touched upon copyright, marketing strategies, different collections and workarounds. Reporting workarounds seems to be a common discussion, like with Jennifer's presentation, regarding working with different spreadsheets and merging them. But it sounds like it all comes down to having to work directly with your clients, figuring out what they need, getting specifics. I didn't know if any of the panelists wanted to discuss in general just how they work with their patrons, identify potential collections that can be developed. Might be helpful to talk about that. Even Amanda, if you want to talk about the nursing conference session that you had put together in your presentation. We actually did a similar thing at my organization where we had posters that we put in the IR, and the metrics for it have been really popular. So if nobody has any more questions or nobody wants to comment, we'll just get ready for the next session. It looks like we got about 3 minutes if people want to take a break. We'll keep asking.
There was one question that I see that came through to panelists only. That was a question from Marisa saying, does anyone's institutional repositories assign DOIs? And that's a good question. I'd like to hear that too.
Okay, so I would say people write in the chat, or if anybody wants to jump on and respond to that. Thanks, Anthony. I was babbling, so I didn't see it.
I don't watch everything.
It's a team effort.
I don't have much experience minting DOIs, but I am curious, are there any tools in IRs that do that automatically? How does that work?
I've been investigating this a little bit. I don't have a presentation on it or anything, but DataSite Fabrica has APIs that you can integrate with your IR to mint DOIs.
Okay.
It's something that we're exploring at MSK, but don't have maybe next year for Meryl. We'll be able to present on that.
Yeah, I was also going to say it's something we're very interested in, particularly with the data archiving piece coming into play. I think having a persistent identifier if you are archiving data is going to be very critical. So we're not doing it now, but it's something I'm definitely interested in exploring either through Crossref or DataSite, as Lisa Palmer mentioned.
Okay, great. Well, that's it for this session. I'm going to hand it off to Anthony.